This is IA Forward, your playbook for success as an independent insurance agent. Now, here to help you knock it out of the ballpark are your hosts, Shane Tatum, Mike Basil, and Tanya Lead.
Welcome to IA Forward, and welcome to Q3, the second half of 2026.
This is, a little behind the curtain. We took last week off. There'll be no gap in our Tuesdays, but we took last week off, and we are a dumpster fire so far here. Like we are just not getting to it.
Well, thanks, Mike.
Shane's mouth is moving, no words are coming out. Then there's a string of words, and his mouth is moving.
It's a kung fu movie.
We're working on our
Huntington, Texas kung fu movie.
We're working on our kung fu movie, look-alike thing going on. Little Bruce Lee, maybe. I don't know.
So these are those growing pains. You get that seconds stoplight. The population is booming.
Absolutely.
Internet can't keep up.
AI data centered, debate going on, and they're taking our water. They're taking our bandwidth because I'm having the internet problem today. Like it's all kinds of problems going on here with all the growth of small town America.
Do y'all are getting a data center there?
They're trying to. Yeah,
it's a Staples.
Yeah, no, it's not a Staples. There's an old paper mill that is being considered for an AI data center, and we have a lot of water, and I don't even know what is real anymore about all that. Like it's just, I can't tell. Like some people are just mad because they're just mad. They want to be mad about it, and then some people like are for it, and then I don't actually know where the source of truth is, quite honestly, or where to get the source of truth for stuff like that. So
I thought we were sticking these suckers in space.
I think that was part of the SpaceX Elon plan, right? We're just going to dock all these on the moon or something, let them float around.
Space Huntington.
Yeah.
Space Huntington. I don't know, but they're trying to create a law here because they were saying that they were looking at putting one here. And so now they're trying to create local ordinances to keep that from happening for a specific data center. And that specific data center company's like, we're not even looking at Escambia County. We don't even know where the rumor came from.
Yeah.
But yeah, y'all can pass the ordinance, but we're not even looking at y'all. So I don't know. I'm with Shane on the source.
This is probably not the topic of our podcast, I know, and we don't need to go too long, but this is the thing. Like I have experience here locally where there was a situation about 40 years ago, maybe even longer, where there was industry that came in to within 2 miles of our local school district. And we had the opportunity for that industry, that plant, to be built within the borders of our school district, which would have been a huge property tax base for our local economy, our local school district. And we allowed for some annexation from another community, which is 8 miles away from that industrial site. And that, because people thought it was a bad idea, right? People thought, they're going to do something to us. It's near a creek, right? So it became this environmental concern, but the thing got built anyway, and the other school district benefited from it. The other local school district benefited from it. So I think there's just a lot of things out there that are just, we've got to figure out how to get to our source of truth and not get into this social media game where, we take everything posted on social media as the truth gospel. I mean, we got to do some more research. So I'm done for today. That's it. That's all for me. No more preaching. Done.
It's in Third Hezekiah's. It's amazing what all's in Third Hezekiah's. Okay, so second half of the year, we've had a really interesting first half from industry perspective as a whole. We have one of the biggest name brand exclusive carriers turn things upside down. The market has started to shift from being the hardest market in generations to starting to soften, which has starting to turn our independent agencies upside down. So what shifts are we looking at making there with our retail agency, Shane, going into the second half of the year? And then what shifts are you seeing under the crystal ball of the Shane world? Or what changes are you seeing in the Shane crystal ball for the second half of the year that we need to be making?
Yeah, these are such dangerous questions. When you're in the hot seat type topic like this, what happens is you say things, and then a year from now, people are like, I thought you said this was going to happen, and so,
there's no. I think now there's evidence
that's going to happen, right? But I think there's enough historical information to say, whether it happens in the same time frame or whether it takes a little longer. That's to be determined. But what we're seeing and the trends we're seeing is that we're actually losing business that at a rate that we weren't losing business at during the hard market, right? I mean, that's not exactly true. Like the trend was heading down, right? Our trend was going down in the sense of cancellation rate. And now it's kind of trickling back up. And I think that's an interesting thing, because that is actually a normal thing coming out of a hard market. Our customers, the agency customers are exhausted from the last several years. And so now, just like we talked about on a previous podcast with Mitzi Fox, now we have exhaustion at the client level, and even the smallest price increase is now getting their attention, right? And so I think the thing that's really interesting is you can do one of two things. You can play really, really good defense, which is not going to actually save all of your clients because you're going to lose some clients coming into this new market shift. Or you can balance and you can continue to play offense, or you can begin to play offense on a more aggressive basis if you haven't been. That's what we're doing. We're working really, really hard to make sure that our new business engine does not stall out, that we keep the new business engine moving forward. Because what we know is that as we come out of these last 3 years and get into this softening market, everybody's after business again. Well, what that means is that means more clients are going to be approached, that the client base is going to see an opportunity to maybe save a little bit of money. And after spending 3 years with no options, that sounds pretty good to people right now. If I can save a little bit of money, forget the fact that you salvaged and saved them 3 years in a row and worked your tail off for them. Right now, they're worried about groceries. They're worried about the gas bill. They're worried about everything that's going up in the marketplace. Insurance is a target right now, right? Insurance premiums have become a very highlighted target for the political space, especially coming into election season. And so you've got to continue to press the gas on the new business to make sure that some of that natural churn doesn't leave you high and dry.
So you presented that in a, black and white a little bit there, but like if we got into it a little more, because, we have 50 more minutes, like, you can't just go new business full steam and say whatever happens over here on the other stuff happens. This isn't a captive environment where you're getting almost nothing on your retention, but everything you make is on that new business. You do have to spend some time and energy on trying to retain as much as is retainable within a reasonable amount of effort.
Yeah, I think balance is the word that if I didn't say it, should be inserted in there, right? There's got to be a balance. And the reason I say that about new business and kind of say, hey, don't let your new business engine stall out, is when you have something like agents that I'm talking to are not the agents that are under 2 or 3 years old in terms of the agency life cycle, the independent agents that started just in the last few years. I'm talking about those that are 3 years and older, right? They've built something, they've got a book of business. When you have something to lose, you tend to emotionally react a little bit differently to that, right? And what I see happen more times than not is I see a panic. And, oh my goodness, I'm losing business. My 3%, 5% rate increase that was basically a joy to see over the last several years. I mean, 15 to 20% was a joy to see. Well, now my 5% rate increase is walking up to me and going, you got to do something. And you're having to remarket constantly, and you're having to play all this defense on what you believe as an agent is this nominal rate increase or just, loss cost increase. I think that's true. What I'm saying is consumer mindset is seeing it different and going to see it different. And if you panic and you go over here and say, well, my gosh, we've got to spend all of our energy on retention, and your new business engine stalls out, the truth of it is you're still going to lose 10% of your business, no matter what you do. You might, maybe the great ones, elite, you lose 5%. Some are going to lose 15% of their business, right? And so where I'm going with that is if you lose that type of, business, then you've got to have new business to stay even or grow, right? And so that's what I see is the typical behavior from agents is when you go into a market cycle like this is sometimes there's panic. And yes, I agree. You can't ignore retention. I'm not saying that. Balance, 50-50, something. Do something that is not allowing your team to stall out your new business.
So you mentioned remarketing there. How should someone be balancing remarketing versus concerns about, end of year bonusing? You can't just keep shifting business around in a perpetual way.
Yeah. Remarketing an account doesn't make an agent any money, right? I mean, it retains revenue, but it costs a lot of money to remarket the account in time, in terms of time and energy. Time is money. And so that's time that may be being pulled away from the new business opportunity. And so, no, you can't be in that. And you're saying exactly what I'm maybe trying to say, is if you go down that path where you're constantly remarketing, then you're actually digging a hole, and you can't do that. You can't be in this constant remarket cycle. You have to be okay with some business loss is where I'm at. That's what we're seeing within our retail operation. That's what we're coaching our agents to think about is it's going to happen. That's the crystal ball. it's not that it's even a crystal ball. It's like we're seeing it. That's the trend. And no matter what you do with it, aggressive growth efforts by carriers who have been on the sidelines for 3 years are going to create disruptions in the in-force book because they're throwing new business discounts on there. They're doing all kinds of aggressive marketing and tactics from the captive channel, from the direct channel, from other independents. And so there's going to be some, I hate to use the word churn, but there's going to be some dislocation within the in-force books.
From a homeowner's perspective, the hard market for us down in Florida has been absolutely atrocious, right? And when you look at insurance rates that went up $600 a month, that is substantial from a budget perspective. And the cute boy and I were driving to the gym this morning and talking about insurance and escrow and how crazy our property taxes have gone up in the last year, along with those insurance rates. And so I understand why people are trying to find places that they can pull back some and wanting those remarkets. But it makes me think of Aunt Mitzi. And Mike, you haven't been on an Aunt Mitzi podcast with us. I have this friend who lives in rural Alabama, who is from Mississippi. And Aunt Mitzi is very unique and very fun, and she likes to do things her way. And she was looking for cheaper homeowners insurance and went through the home remarketing process and ended up in a big hot mess and actually ended up spending more money. But watching her go through the process of getting new quotes on her home and what all it took to do that, I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like, I mean, as long as I can afford my insurance, I really don't want to have to go through that. Right. I mean, it was crazy how all of the things that she had to do from her end. And I think people don't always realize that, yes, it's pretty easy to reshop or get a lower quote on your vehicles, on your toys. But when people are asking for that on their homes, people don't have any idea what all it can take to get that.
Yeah, it's exhausting. Right. And I try to put myself in the shoes of that customer. And one of our core values at Integra is make it personal. And that means like sit in their seat, like understand, try to understand what this feels like. And as independent agencies, as advocates, as risk managers and advisors, this is kind of one of those things where we got to make sure we're doing that plain English, plain language movement where we're speaking not in too of a technical term, where we're, not talking down to people, but we're talking to them in that plain language way, making it easier. I mean, I think that is an example of why I am so bullish and such a long-term advocate of the independent agent, is because I do not think AI, I do not think the latest thing of whatever's next, whether that's, AI or, I've lost the adaptive AI. There's so many different things that are happening that are like, oh, it's, gloom and doom. No, it's not, because people want to talk to people and people do not want to talk to an AI robot. And you just think about her example of going through that and actually ending up in a worse spot, right? Like that's the crazy thing is what
I know we talk about this a lot, but I think it's important to keep bringing up is just answer the phone, because I actually had this happen. Excuse me. Sorry. I just had this come up last week. Someone was actually stunned that I answered the phone. Like they didn't say, I said, hello, this is Mike. And they were like, hello? I was like, hi. Like, and they did, like, they called me and they were having trouble getting started because really they just had their voicemail message queued up in their head. And now they had to deviate.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing that it's that simple, but that's where we are.
Now, not to get hung up on the remarketing for too long, but I'd love to get your take on this because this is obviously something I don't really have any involvement in, so I don't know. When we talk about remarketing, obviously, if you're going to remarket someone, you're going to get quotes from whatever, 2-3 places, and they're never going to be exactly apples to apples. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to do your best to match coverages best you can. Yeah. It's rarely is it going to be just exactly the same. Yeah.
So then it's obviously your job to explain the differences between the different policies. And this is, here's my recommendation, but these are the options. Now, how does that work if there's another agency involved? Do you ever see that quote? Or is it just you give what you have and it's kind of just in their hands and you go from there? I'm just curious.
Yeah. I think unless that client shares that information with you, you probably won't see that other offer. That's where you see things like if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So you see situations where it's really happens a lot coming out of the exclusive channel in a situation where you're trying to retain a client and all of a sudden they got a quote from XYZ, exclusive company. And that there's no way because it's, 30% cheaper than where you're at. And you're like, okay, something's wrong. Like there's missing coverage. There's something. Maybe you're providing full replacement cost on the roof. Maybe you got the underwriter to approve the roof because it's in good condition and it's 15 years old and they're getting a roof schedule. There's no replacement cost. Maybe it's all ACV, whatever. There might be some drastic difference on the actual coverage side that's leading to that significant difference in premium. Unfortunately, the customer, is in a position of potentially getting duped there. Nothing necessarily bad, right? You can't really blame the exclusive channel agent for offering what they can offer, right? They're offering their product, which is the only thing they can offer. And it just so happens that the customer has a Cadillac and you're offering them, a Pinto to age myself a little bit. Right. And so, so it's like, okay, there's a reason that it's a lot cheaper. Right. And, much like the Pinto, if there's a problem, there's going to be an explosion. Right. It's not good. And so, this is kind of the reality of where the market cycle is moving to. And it's a great example of the challenge of the enforced book and the challenge with the client and why we need to continue to answer the phone. To your point, it's something that.
By the way, the Ford Pinto ended production in 1980.
Yeah, did it? Okay.
Yeah, right. but what makes me feel so much better, I think, is the fact that I made a Ford Pinto reference last week and everybody just looked at me like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And so the fact that Shane Tatum, our CEO, just made a Ford Pinto reference just kind of warmed my heart.
I know. I was 7. But I do remember the whole thing with the Ford Pinto and, that was a whole big deal. And, something about where they put the gas tank and it wasn't very smart engineering. So, but it's a great analogy. I know we don't always reference Cadillacs anymore. But Cadillac and Pintos are really good. You got this policy and it's a really rich coverage rich policy, but they're paying for it. Right. I think that's the next phase that we're in too, is, hey, what's your risk tolerance? Hey, I can get you that less expensive policy, but do you have the risk tolerance to self-insure for the things you're going to lose from the policy I currently have you with? I don't know that we're doing enough of that. We talk about that internally here. What does that look like? How do we message that? Because to Tanya's point with Aunt Mitzi, some really high percentage, 80, 75, 80% they don't want to mess with it. So that's kind of back to, no, you don't ignore retention, but you don't spend all of your energy on retention because not everybody's going to call, right? No, not ever. Half of them are just going to continue to pay, right? And so if you put so much panic energy into retention and that jump in cancellation trend, then you end up shutting down your new business engine. And I'm telling you, there's carriers out there right now on the direct side. Geico's in the news right now on the direct side talking about they're having trouble spinning back up their engine, right? Because they did some things, right? I'm not talking about moving into the independent channel. I'm talking about on their direct side. They did some slowdown for market condition reasons, and they're having trouble getting their engine back off the ground. That's their CEO. That's their comments in the news. Getting your new business engine unstalled once it stalls out is really, really hard and costly. And so we are sales organizations at our core, and we can't forget that. We have to keep our new business engine primed up all times.
Not all business is good business in real life. And sometimes we have those clients that are just a pain in the booty, honey. And when we are looking at retention, we're saying, okay, we've got to keep all of these people. I've got to keep all of this. And we're so focused on sometimes keeping clients that we really don't want. That really cause us some major issues. And those clients take up this much of our capacity and this much time. Is this a good time to let go and let God and then take this capacity and fill it with new people that are really people that we want to work with?
It's an opportunity cost, right? To me, it comes down to this. For me, boiling it down to its easiest point is this. That person, if they're that much of a problem, they're always going to complain about you. So their friend is going to come and say, hey, should I use your insurance agency? And they're going to say no. And here's all the reasons. Or they could leave and they're going to give the exact same answer. So you're never going to get ahead on that one. That is one you let go. You get that time back, and you can probably service 3 or 4 other people that are going to be happy with you and refer you, and you're going to perpetuate improvement. You're going to perpetuate those leads coming in and be in a much better place.
Yeah. I call them PETAs, right? Not like the animal protection, acronym, but the pain in the, A. Those clients are absolutely there. And a real example just in the last couple of months on the commercial side in our retail operation. And I think this is a natural sales producer mindset. We take it personal, right? Like when we lose a client, we take it personal. And that is a real thing and a good thing. That's a great trait. It's what makes us super competitive, I think. But we lost a PETA client a couple of months ago. My brother-in-law, who was on this account as a commercial producer, he was very frustrated, and rightly so. But within 6 weeks, because his new business engine had kept firing, because he never stops prospecting, He had replaced that PETA client plus some. Okay. And so, what was he to do differently? Like, he was not going to keep that client. There was nothing he could do to keep the client that he lost. He was ahead of it. He had everything where it needed to be. Like, there was no extra, like, in hindsight, I should have done X. That's my point. You can't stop your engine, because in his case, he replaced it, right? And we're going to be better off for it. He's going to be better off for it in the end, because he replaced it with, clients that are better clients to work with, actually. And they're accounts that somebody else lost because he's the disruptor, right? In that case. And those clients were frustrated, not because they're, a pain in the butt, but because they just weren't getting attention from their existing agent. And we had been after those accounts for a couple of years, and we hung with it. We kept our engine going, and we picked up those accounts, right? And so I think those are the success stories that I'm thinking about of why we have to keep that balance.
How else do you see our retail agency shifting between now and December that might help someone listening with making adjustments with their agency?
Yeah, we're getting out even earlier on some messaging. We're automating a lot of things from a messaging standpoint. We're reviewing our messaging, and we're trying to make sure that we're telling our clients, hey, we are watching, we are looking at it, we are as concerned as anybody about the rate of inflation, of price increases over the last several years. We're here if you want to talk about it. So for us, it's about communication. We have lowered our proactive threshold. So during the hard market, our system, our automation piece, we had to raise the threshold of an account that we considered high risk because of just how everything was going up at such a rate. We couldn't, if we didn't raise that threshold, if we would have kept that threshold at say 10%, well, we would have been looking at every single renewal, which was not cost effective as an organization. And so we, at one point in the worst points of the hard market, our high risk threshold was 30%. So it had to be over 30% rate increase for us, price increase for us to actually proactively pull it out. We've lowered that. We're proactively looking at a lower threshold that we're considering high risk. But again, we're not taking that down to 5%. I think it's around 15 now. We're looking at maybe watching that, see what happens. Do we take that down to 12? Like, where is the floor? We're looking for where the floor is. We think it's somewhere between probably 6 and 12, but we don't know what it is yet. And we're proactively messaging and automating through all of that. That's to protect our people as much as anything, so that our people don't get beat up, they don't become exhausted. That's a big part of what we're doing through the second half of this year.
So with the market loosening, there may be new opportunity with carriers that had maybe tightened up a little bit with new appointments. So how should people be handling bringing new carriers on, moving business to that new carrier? Do you just put new business with that new carrier? How should people be handling that?
Yeah, great question. Yes, the answer is yes. Appointments are opening up. Carriers are interested in finding new growth opportunities, not only within their existing contracted agents, but new contracts for probably the first time in at least 3 years, maybe 4 even. where there's a loosening there with the appointments. I think the question is, can you feed them, right? Like, can you continue to serve the relationships that have been with you? You got to take care of the one that brought you to the dance, right? You got to dance with the one that brought you, because here's the side of that. You've built some books of business. You probably are in profit sharing opportunity with some of those books of business. The last thing you want to do is start robbing Peter to pay Paul, shoot yourself in the foot, and take away your profit sharing opportunities just because there's a market available to you now, right? Like, what is the strategy for that market to fit into your overall book of business? I do like the new business strategy, unless you're having a problem with a carrier. But again, you don't need to shrink with a carrier. And since we're already kind of battling the reality that we're going to have a little bit of dislocation in the existing books, you got to write new business with the same carriers that brought you to the dance, so that you don't shrink with those carriers, because a lot of profit sharing dollars are affected by shrinkage, right? So you got to be careful there. The agreements don't allow you to shrink. And so I think it's just a case by case strategic view of, can you afford to feed, this carrier? Can you afford to do that? Now, shameless plug, agent network environment, got a little bit more flexibility around that, because, the volume can maybe be handled aggregately and allow you to maybe pull in an extra carrier or two that you've been really thinking it would help you grow at another level.
So, but really the bottom line is, can you create enough new business to support the new relationship? It doesn't all have to be there, right? It can be some getting moved to there and you're replacing that business with the original carrier, but there's got to be enough new business coming in.
There does. And, the question is do you have the lead sources? Are you, would this new carrier or two new carriers that you brought in, would they increase your hit ratio on your existing leads? Would there be some kind of lift that kept you from just shifting business from one carrier to another? That's a bad strategy, and that's a game that would ultimately cause you pain with those existing relationships.
And one thing I would love to know is, has this podcast ever sounded older? In this podcast alone, we've referenced the Pinto, robbing Peter to pay Paul, dancing with Who Brung You. Did you ever get a splinter from your wooden shoes walking to school uphill both ways?
No, this is a lot of old cliches being thrown out today. I don't know. I'm turning into one big one line cliche. I'm afraid I'm showing my age.
I don't know, but it's getting time for supper over here. So I'm just,
We just lost all of Gen Z. We're hanging on to a little bit of the millennial crowd, but Gen Z checked out like 20 minutes ago. So
we have had such a focus in the last year and a half on things having to move to E&S markets. What does that look like as the market is softening and carriers are wanting to write more business?
Yeah, I think that's kind of, there's a handful of catastrophe focused. Speaking of plain language, I got to speak some plain language here. Catastrophe focused coastal carriers who have had it really good, right? And they've almost had monopolistic environments in some cases, some states. And as you see some of the mainline carriers start to say, well, we've had really good results. Carriers, 10 product managers, investment, executive levels at the companies where investments are up and their investment opportunities, returns are up. and they see opportunity here. They're looking to pump premium so they can invest that money. There's so much that goes into the insurance company business model that when things start softening up, short-term memory loss starts to come into play. It's what I call it. Like, people forget that, what those claims look like and those losses look like a few years ago. And all of a sudden they want to start writing some business and opening up some zip codes that maybe they weren't willing to do business in a few years ago. And so I think, there's that reality. We could see a little bit of a shift from that surplus environment back to the standard preferred admitted market. I think, though, there's going to be less of that this time than there was in previous cycles. I mean, we have so much economic development in the line of fire, housing that is in the line of fire, to use some more cliches, Mike, and one-liners. Make sure I get another one in there. Because so much has been built over the last 30 years within 100 miles of the coastline. At some point, we're playing roulette here, right? Like, we've got a big bad Cat 5 hitting somebody, and it's going to do some damage. And so everybody's trying to mitigate that risk, and everybody's trying to prepare for that future gigantic hit by just understanding what they need to do or don't need to do. And so I think that protects the surplus lines growth that we've seen, and those surplus lines writers continue to kind of maintain where they are. But I do think the rate of surplus lines growth is going to slow way, way down. I think that mainline carriers are going to jump back into certain areas, and because they're looking for premium, they're looking to grow their premium, and they need to grow their premium. And some of the stuff that was done over the last 3 years probably went too far and needs to kind of come back to center, so to speak. They just swung that pendulum way too far. There's another one, swung that pendulum.
So while we're on these cliches, I want, since I kind of consider you the Nick Saban of the independent insurance world.
Wow. Okay.
And, we all know that Coach Saban was the best in the locker room at halftime, right? And he could take honest evaluation. He made smart adjustments. He encouraged players to play harder than before. So I need the Coach Saban version, rah-rah-ish of Shane Tatum on what adjustments that we're going to make going into the second half of the game, the second half of the year.
So you want the Nick Saban, not the Newt Rockne, to really, to go back to what was the movie? Notre Dame.
Rudy,
to show my age some more. Rudy. Y'all like Rudy, right? You've seen Rudy. Come on.
Of course,
everybody's seen Rudy. Mike.
Yeah. No, I've seen that one.
Okay. Yep. So we've got a 3 for 3 on who's seen the movie today. That's strong, right?
Well, I mean, usually you come up with these weird, obscure things it's Rudy.
Yeah. What was that? What's that nonsense? That Western movie that we've talked about a few times. What was that?
Something Sadie Wells or something. I don't know.
Outlaw Josie Wells.
Josie Wells.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of those Wells.
But y'all haven't even seen Dazed and Confused. So that's a whole nother thing too. So I'm a little bothered.
You've met me, right? Why would I watch
Well, that's from the 70s as well, isn't it?
No. Dazed and Confused is.
That's the 90s.
No, the other one.
Oh, Outlaw Josie Wells?
Yeah. That's from the 70s.
Late 60s, early 70s. Yeah, it's even better before my time.
Yeah.
So, no, I think it was like 76 or something like that. I think I was 2. So
yeah, we're going to get a lot of prospect calls from people in their 30s after this episode. Go ahead.
Oh man, again, we're sales organizations, right? Like your new business engine has to stay primed and running, and let this be a lesson. If you slowed your new business engine, you can't. That never, ever slow your new business engine, right? It's never like, okay, let's stop this piece and let's start this piece, right? It's no, we keep doing what we're doing over here. And if we need to add a little protection on the backside with our retention strategy, then we add that in. We don't slow the new business engine in order to protect the retention side, right? That's my best locker room effort for mid-year right now is if that happened to you, get it primed back up, get it going, put energy into the new business. Don't freak out. Like, don't panic. If there's ever a time to hear me say be even keeled, it's now. Because if you start panicking and you start focusing on retention, your new business engine's going to stall out before you know it. And that's going to actually cause you a lot of trouble.
I think the bottom line is you refer to it as the new business engine. So that new business engine has limitless possibilities if you think about it. Yep. You don't know what could come of that. But retention has a cap to what it can produce for you.
Yeah. That's right. Statistically, that's right. You're not losing 100% of your business. If you just ignored retention, all right, you're going to have some carriers knocking on your door. But if you just said, I'm not going to touch it, I'm just going to automate some things, I'm going to react to some phone calls, but I'm not going to proactively do anything with my retention, you're still keeping 85% of your business. This is the beauty of our industry. It's the beauty of our business model. So, okay, we're talking about putting some energy into the retention to get a 5% lift on your retention. That is a big deal because that means you have to grow less. You have to write less new business in order to grow because those things work together. I'm doing math in my head. I'm sorry. Sometimes I do that to my wonderful wife and she gets mad at me and she's like, you're doing math in your head. I'm not following you. Right.
I love that you do math in your head for someone who does math for a living. That's outstanding.
Yeah. So, it's like, you can't put so much energy over here that you stall out. It's just a bad idea and it never works that way. And again, the people who just put it on autopilot with some automation on the retention side, their retention's not going to be that bad.
We had our company-wide Integra partner network call earlier today, and some of our agents were asking about profit sharing for the year and what were we looking like and coming out of second quarter and going into third quarter, and kind of reminded me of that quote of nobody remembers who led at halftime and they remember who finished. And some of the challenges that you've had over the last 4 years watching Emma Kate play at Kansas and how great they would get coming out of the fifth, but not being able to finish those games, right? So that's kind of where I'm thinking on this is, okay, this is what the first half of my year looked like. What can I do to turn it around and really focus on the second half to make my agency profitable, to make my agency better, to be looking at those profit sharing dollars, which I know you say we can't fix this year. You're starting toward next year, right?
I think that's I was just going to say. I know what he's going to say. You should have taken care of it in 2025.
Right. But there are things that we can do in the next 6 months that can make a huge difference for us. Yes. You can tell us we've got to keep our new business engine going. How do you see how do you see how do you see agencies doing that when we're having this huge shift in the market? Because everyone's focused on the way it has been. How do we get that shift to this is the new way of doing things?
Yeah. One, it's natural for insurance agents to think about sales, right? They just have to make sure they don't get bored. Like I really, I want to give a little shout out, nothing to do with us. I don't even know the guys. I've been listening to a little bit of a newer podcast, Scratch Agent podcast. Some guys out of New York, up around Mike's area. And, I think this is something Dave realized, and it reminded me, is insurance agents are really bad at continuing to do what they do well and double down and triple down on that. We're really bad. We have squirrel syndrome really, really bad. We have shiny object syndrome really, really bad. And when we hear somebody else talk about some cool new thing, some cool new strategy, we will drop everything we're doing, even if it's really good and successful, and we will go try to chase that thing. And I am begging. I am, the older Shane here talking to the younger Shane. I did this too. I made these mistakes. If you will just double down on what's working well and triple down on what's working well, you will win. And I think that's the thing that needs to happen through the rest of 2026. And I'm going to say it might actually impact your 2026 profit sharing contingency results. You can actually do that because yes, the market's shifting, but the market's shifting for everyone, right? And so you can be a disruptor by putting on your natural sales hat and doing what works. If you're a personal lines agent, this is not the time to shift to commercial. It's the time to double up or triple up on personal lines. If you're a commercial lines agent, double up on that. It's not the time to shift over, right? This is a time to take huge advantage of the fact that you have a lot of carriers coming back into the market who want to grow. So you got here by doing something really good. So keep doing that. Stop getting bored and stop worrying about some really cool idea that you heard, some other guy talk about. That's great for them. Let them double down on that really cool idea. But you need to double down on what brought you here, what got you to this place.
Matt, Tanya, when you take us out, I hope it is some super old 70s or 80s reference. Do not let me down on this.
I never thought the day would come where I would get made fun of for being old. I was always the young guy. Y'all realize that?
I'm going to leave us today with this quote from Paul Bear Bryant. So, we've gone through saving, and then we're going to go back to the bear. Halftime isn't for celebrating what you've done. It's for adjusting what you haven't.
That's great. Attitudes. A choice. Make a great one.
Bye, y'all.
At the Integra Partner Network, we understand that carrier access is the key to your agency's success. That's why Integra offers direct access to top-rated personal and commercial carriers, ensuring your agency thrives in today's challenging market. And with our comprehensive resources, profit sharing and bonus opportunities, technology and peer support, all while you retain 100% of your book with no penalties to exit. Integra is ready to empower you and your agency to find sustained growth. Find your way to Integra. Visit IntegraPartnerNetwork.com today. That's IntegraPartnerNetwork.com.